Hello and welcome back to the next episode of Kaleidoscope's podcast. And welcome to today's guest speaker, Laura Ordile. And it's not an ordeal to speak to you, it's lovely to speak to you. You're not an ordeal at all. I think you should change the pronunciation of that name. But anyway, how are you? Do I find you
I'm
well in the
doing
spring?
good. I'm
Yeah.
doing good. I actually say that I finally married into the name I've lived up to all my life. So
So
I'm
our
okay.
podcast, as you know, is about change. And I met you through hypnotherapy for PTSD, and you
Yeah.
interviewed me about the changes that had happened in my life. So now
Yeah.
I'm reciprocating. So it's lovely to go back to someone who's hosted me to be able to host you, and it's to learn a bit more, Laura, about what happened in your life. What are the changes? And as I say at the top of all of these, what was life like beforehand? What was the change like? What was life like afterwards? And what does the future hold? So I'm
Yeah.
just going to pass it to you and you tell us your story.
All right. Well, so this is interesting when we talk, we talked a little bit about how the conversation about, and you shared how some people share the whole life, something they're happening right now, one instance of something, and so I thought I'd share one of the most recent situations for me. And by recent, I mean in the last few years. That's recent to me. So uh I am how do I say, I guess of an age, and so
I'm of the same
it
age.
came up. I'm of an age. And I came to a point in my life, and it was building. I think change is either really quick and in the moment, when we either make a change and decide really quickly this is going to happen right now, or there are those catalyst things that lead up to it, or sometimes it's something that we didn't choose and the change is happening, and sometimes that's really hard to deal with, and I understand that. But I think I was leading up to this change for quite some time. I was in a job for 23 years, corporate job for
Wow.
23 years. And there was a fair amount of that where I was not super happy, but I couldn't step away from a really good paycheck, from benefits, from the security of that job, even though I knew, oh my goodness, I mean, there was times during that job where I I was so unhappy. I had to come to a realization in that job that I had this really big, what they call aha moments, I guess, where I was driving to work every day crying every day on the way to work. And I finally, at whatever, I don't know what happened or how it was, but I just said, this is ridiculous. This cannot continue to happen. And I decided in that moment that it didn't matter what was going on at work, who was there to challenge me. They could tell me how to do certain things at work. They put forth my schedule. They, could tell me the job I had to do that day, all those things. But they could not tell me how to feel. They could not choose for me whether I was going to be happy or not. And that was a big thing for me in that moment. And so in that moment, I decided I'm going to find something every day. I don't care what it is to smile about, just something. There might still be crap days, but I'm gonna find something. And so I did. I started finding stuff every day, even if it was just how the sky looked. I drove everywhere. And so I was out and I could see beautiful things every day. And so I just had to notice them. And as you know, when you start giving the mind something to do, it does it. It starts finding those things. And so I started finding all these things. And at the same time, I knew I was moving into a direction. I had the work I did before, and then I brought in hypnotherapy. And when I brought in hypnotherapy and started really working with myself, uh, things started to shift even more. And so all of a sudden, and this happens, and people have to realize this happens, some things start happening at work in ways that were uncomfortable. They had told us that in 10, 20 years, these changes were going to happen. And I knew in a moment that it was like, it's not going to be that long. It's not going to be that long. And then those things started happening. And they said, well, now it's moving up to this. And it was part of a process of elimination of my job. So you go into panic. It's like, oh my gosh, they're going to get rid of me. What am I going to do? I'm going to end up a bag lady. You, you go down this whole thing. Your brain, who is this amazing, wonderful thing, takes you into fear mode, into the scare, of, oh no, oh no, oh no. And it's just trying to protect you, but it doesn't always protect you in the way that we want it to protect us, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, yeah. And so I went down this whole road, and something else happened at that time. And I had a disagreement with someone, and my boss kind of, we had to have a discussion about, and in that moment, I thought, I'm 50 something years old. Okay. And I am not going to be called into the principal's office anymore in my life. I'm not going to do that because somebody over here has hurt feelings, or because I hadn't done anything wrong. It was just a matter of perspective in this other person. And I kind of got tired of that at that point. And so with the thing happening with them coming closer to the situation of the job going away, with the interaction with this boss, and kind of feeling like I am an amazing person and I don't need this part in my life anymore. And I had come to this, it took me a while to build up inside who I needed to be in this moment. But when I came to that, I thought, all right. So of course I went down like I said, the train of, if I lose my job, I'm going to lose everything. This is going to happen. It's going to be horrible. I'm going to have to go eat worms. And so I, I reeled it back in and was like, all right, what if, those wonderful words, what if? What if that didn't happen? What if I chose another path? What if I went down the road of things happening in a really good way? What if I went down the road of success in the things that I love most? And I started taking myself down the road using my imagination, which was taking me into the go eat worms mode, into the good mode of things. And it was like, hmm. And so I sat down and I did the practical thing, because we need to combine it all. We need to combine, the thought process and the wonderfulness and all that with the practicality of doing things. And so I sat down and I wrote out all my stuff and did a financial check and did all of these things of what it would look like if I left this job. And so at the same time, my amazing, beautiful daughter did something wonderful for me and got pregnant. And and uh, and so then another conversation came into play. And it was like, well, what if I did go ahead and leave now, leave early, and then I could help take care of the baby, which I have two other grandbabies. I never had the opportunity to do that with them. What would that look like? And again, I brought the what if in. What if I did that? How would that fit into still doing what I wanted to do? Could I make it work? All of these wonderful things came into play, and it started to take shape. And it felt good too to think, and I can leave this job on my terms, not their terms, not because I'm eh, going to become, no longer needed, and all of these things. And I thought, wow, what if I did this? And so I started kind of looking at it and talking about it, and then I did it. I went in and on my terms, I literally gave 2 weeks notice and said, I think I'm done. And I mean, this was not in a couple of days. This process took a few months to kind of for everything to fall into place, and maybe even actually a little more than that, up to a year. But everything started in that moment where things had been building before. And then that catalyst moment of being established enough in myself in a place where I decided really that I wasn't going to let anyone else judge my capabilities, decide who I was going to be in this world, how I was going to be in this world, and and the process of what would it look like if that could actually happen. And so I did that and I moved into, and I am so happy and content. And I get to play with my little grandbaby. I still have the work that I do. Obviously, I have my business, my hypnosis business and the other work that I do. And so I get to work with clients, I get to help people, I get to do those things, and I still have the time with my family, which is incredibly important to me. And I get to prioritize according to me, to what I want and how I want it. And I get to decide, am I doing a good job? What do I need to change or adjust or, uh, you know, uh, I can decide, and I get to decide that in the work that I'm doing, and I get to decide the people I'm working with, how I have that exchange with someone. And it's incredibly freeing and powerful at the same time. So I encourage everyone to take those moments and find the place inside themselves where no matter what's going on around you, you can be happy, or even just okay. Sometimes you just have to be okay.
Yeah.
There can be some really tough stuff going on, but if you can come into that center of self and go, okay, I don't like that that's happening in my life, or I'm not super happy about this, but I'm okay. And I have to say, as what's the saying? It's not been a total bowl of cherries. There have been some days that have been difficult. There have been some thought processes of, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to work out okay? Financially, am I in a place that's all right? Or financially, where we were struggling for a month and I had to go, but I never said, I have to change everything. I can't do this. I never went to that. I went to, what can I adjust to make this a little easier next month? What can I look at? What are the options? And I think when you change in how you do that, and instead of just going to the worst case scenario, you can go, wow, how can I adjust this a little bit to make it better, to move this part that's uncomfortable for me into lining up in a way that is comfortable? Even if it's a step that isn't ideal, it might be the step that you need to take to get you to the next one. And and I think sometimes people get so into the moment of, I hate that. I'm not going to do that. I never want to do that again. If I do that, I'm failing. Instead of going, I really don't want to do this, but what would it look like if I did this instead? I have people that when I talk to them, they I was talking to someone the other day, just as an example, and they were telling me, I don't want to just work for money anymore. I want to work to fill myself, to feel like I'm living up to my potential, to feel like I'm this. And it's great. Absolutely. I understand that. That's what I want too. But what's the step? They weren't paying their bills. They weren't doing some of these things. And I said, well, what's the step that you can take that's going to relieve, even if it's just paying the bills for a little while, stepping into something where it's easy, it's okay, it's not awful, it doesn't feel uncomfortable, and it is just a stepping stone to get you, maybe you meet the person that's going to get you into the next position of feeling all of that potential. But sometimes you do have to go, okay, I have to take this step, and it's not awful. It's okay. And then you can move into the flow of all of that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely does, because I remember whenever I left, and I love that you're saying that it doesn't happen in a moment. It does happen over, for a lot of us, it happens over years. But the decision is made in a moment.
Yeah.
The final, I'm done. happens, but it has taken, in my life, the angels making the road uncomfortable enough for me to get to the point where I'm going, I can't do this anymore. But also that looking at the fear, looking at the I'm going to have to eat worms, and acknowledging that this is real. Financially, what are we going to do? And so, like you, I think the brain is a wonderful thing. I've had people saying, well, why don't we just remove our amygdalas? Well, because it's there for a reason. It's there to keep us safe. And in our modern world, it's overstimulated. So that makes perfect sense as well. But also, when I first left and went out, and everybody's so encouraging, yes, go, we have all this work for you. And yeah, and then you make the leave and make the adjustment and you leave. And you phone these people and say, yes, we've all this. Oh, no, the funding hasn't come through. We don't have that work just yet. And so I ended up actually the very first year of being self-employed, going back to temp in a different council for a couple of months. But it was one of those, I think what I hadn't realized in business was when I was working in a council, in a government, you're busy all year. When you're self-employed, people don't want to spend money on hypnotherapy or counseling or whatever and around Christmas time because they're busy, So my business really dipped in November, and it was lovely to have 2 weeks in November and all of Christmas off. Lovely. Come the end of December, it was like, okay, but I have no work for January, February. So I went back to work in a different council, but it was for 2 months and it was temporary, and it was lovely to know I'm only doing this as a temporary step. And I think it's that thing of the tango doesn't always just go forward. It goes forward and it goes back. And so it's a little bit of a dance sometimes that you've got to do. And whatever job you're doing, and we hear actors and singers and so on and so forth. I heard somebody the other day saying, I haven't worked since 1962 because they're in an industry that they absolutely love. But even at that, there's stuff, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm not very good at marketing and I don't really like it. I love working with people. So therefore I have to do the marketing. So sometimes it's that thing of, yes, when we're eating a bowl of cherries, there are going to be pips and there are going to be stems. It's just all there is to it. So are things going well for you now and you're enjoying spending? I know you love spending time with your family, so it's a bit, but my other listeners may not have come across you as yet. Hopefully they will. They'll go and listen to your podcast, The Change Gang. But are you enjoying spending the time with the family and particularly the grandbabies?
Oh goodness, yes. Yes. He is such a fun little guy. And I raised my kids, but it's just a different thing. And so with my other grandbabies, they were not close by, so I saw them intermittently, and so I was kind of I was still the Grams, but I was a ways away, and I didn't get the day-to-day things and watching them grow as much as I get to do with him. And it's amazing and it's fun. And yes, some days are still hard with him. And I agree with you that people do love what they do. I love what I do. And I don't care who says that. There are parts of what they do that they don't necessarily enjoy. Now, if you're in a place where you can pay everybody to do the things that you don't love, awesome. But for a lot of people, and especially for people who are, first of all, it's a side business or they're kind of just shifting into that business for themselves, it's not an option to just go pay someone to do the marketing or to do the sales page or to do all the, techie stuff or anything. And so it can be frustrating and it can be like, ugh, oh my goodness. But I think if you are balancing that with the good stuff and with all of that, it is life. I mean, you and I both, we do obviously work with the mind, work in hypnosis. But one of the things that I always tell people with that is I'm not going to take away your humanity, your feelings. I'm not going to take away your feelings. You will still have moments of anxiety, of upset, of anger, of being sad, of being elated, of being happy, of being joyful. But it's like a roller coaster. You know, we're all meant to be on that roller coaster of life and experience the feelings in the time frame that we're experiencing them. You know, you're not supposed to have a car accident, say, and go, oh,
Fine.
yay. It's not supposed to be that
Just
way.
teach me. What can I learn from this moment? Do that
No.
later. But at the time, you're meant to dial the emergency services and look after yourself and
Yes, and do, you
scream
know,
or
and
whatever.
feel upset and feel maybe a little scared or a little angry or a little whatever. But it's like that roller coaster, you know, it's you, and that's why the work that we do, it's the when you get stuck, you know, like that roller coaster's down in the bottom somewhere and it's like going back and forth and it's wallowing in that little spot. We need to get you started and moving back through life again in the way that you're meant to. And I think that I love it. So many people don't understand that, but I love that part. And they do get afraid that or have the expectation of that they're never going to have the anxiety again. But you're meant to have anxiety. That's what our mind does. It's just not meant for you to live in anxiety, live in that moment, stay in it. It might be, oh my goodness, I'm a little anxious about this new thing that's coming into the thing. Also, you might determine that that anxiousness is now excitement instead of the anxiousness and understand your feelings a little bit because they come up and start so often in the same way. Anxiety moves into this anxiety and panic attack and all that. But there's a moment where you can decide, oh, that's not actually anxiety, that's excitement. That's fun and interesting. And so you can take it down that path. And I think the work that we both do allows people to kind of move into those things in a way that changes the way they experience feelings and life and all of those things from that point on. And so I think it's so cool. And I get to do that in my own life.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I think that changed a lot for me. And really, all of a sudden, I was like, I want people to have this. I want people to have that centeredness, that moment of, oh, oh my goodness, that's an extra big bill. How am I going to make that work? Instead of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to do that? I can't sleep. I can't eat. And for days, they're in that mode or weeks or more. Instead of that, they're going, oh, all right. Now I'm going to move into my day and hopefully I'm still going to be thinking about this. But my brain is going to be finding the way around that to go, okay, well, I can do this or I can do that. And I'm breathing okay and I'm all right. And I want people to be there.
And it's that thing about being safe. If we know we're safe and
Yes.
we're breathing properly and so on and so forth, we're going to find the answer. Whereas if we've gone into that place where we're panicking, we're probably not going to find the answer because our lovely big thinking brain isn't there to say to us, well, what about? Why don't you? Could you just
Yeah,
do? It won't come up with all those things because it's going. I love that
exactly.
movie, the Inside Out and
Oh
Inside Out
yeah.
2. Have you watched the second one?
No, no, I haven't.
Right. So in the second one, they have introduced anxiety. And I don't want to give any spoilers, but it is exactly. So I kind of do it where you're running about like this, and they do it where she's kind of, and it just is an absolute visualization of how I imagine anxiety is in the brain if it was a tiny little person. And I think it is such a useful graphic to show how can you reach somebody? How can you be thinking clearly about your next step or allowing opportunities to come in if you're just going,
Right?
well,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
what age is your grandbaby?
He's 2.5.
Oh, he's a bit young. But anyway, I would use him as a good excuse to sit down this afternoon and watch Inside Out 2 till you see anxiety just going.
You
Um,
never know. He'll
absolutely.
tolerate some of my choices every now and then.
Um, so what does the future hold?
The future holds the future, what does the future hold for me? Well, I think it holds even establishing and building my business more. That is where I do still hope for a little bit more and maybe some shifts and working with some groups and doing some of those things and being able to, you know, affect more people in the time that I have, which I know a lot of people want to do, but some people don't. Some people want to work all one-on-one. And I love working individually because I always am able to get so detailed and personalized with people, when we're working together. But I think there's an opportunity in groups as well to really benefit people and move in a direction that I think can be helpful. So that's a bit of a goal for me. I'm working out how I want that to look like right now, what I want that to look like, and how to help that to happen. And then continuing with the joy and the family and putting that front and center and working around that. I mean, I love being able to do that. I love being able to manage my life around what's most important to me. And to continue to do that is what I want for the future. So whatever that looks like along the way to where I can stay in a good place, we can support each other as a family and be there and do the things as that family. I'm really lucky. I have both my kids in the area and my all my grandkids now. And so we get together and have those times and I'm able to adjust my schedule accordingly. And I want to continue to be able to do that. So it looks like growth and fun and adventure, planning a trip or two and, building that into the mix of things. So that's what the future holds for me.
Love-
Happiness.
I love that because it's like that perspective you've made your perspective different, where you're at the center of it and the family around you and then works on the periphery. Whereas I think, particularly when
Yeah.
we've young children and the bills are so very, very, and it's not that the bills are less important, but we can manage with less usually.
Yeah. They're
And we
still there.
cut,
They haven't gone away.
no, but we can, we cut our cloth accordingly once the children have moved out. Um, so we can change our perspective that the bills are not the focus, but the family and the joy is the focus. I love that. I love that. Very good.
It is.
Um,
Yeah. And just to say to that, some people will, and it's not to an extreme. Some people take these things and go to the extreme where it's like, well, I only live once. And so they don't take the practicality of the money and let's pay our bills and let's not get too far into debt and let's not do these things. So finding the balance in those things of the happiness and the joy and the experience and the practicality, is so important to me. We've got to be practical and we've got to be, I use practical and we've got to be in our emotional and spiritual side as well. And so, but finding that balance is incredibly important.
and so the questions I like to round off with, I give three options because I know when people ask me what's your favorite book or things like that, I don't have favorites. I have my flavor of the moment. My favorite is usually what I'm reading right now. Um, so the three questions that I ask are, and you can answer all three or just one. Um, what is your favorite book if you were to recommend a book for other people to read? What would you tell your younger self? Or your favorite phrase?
My favorite phrase. Oh, well, a little bit of a favorite phrase and what I would tell my younger self is you are already okay. You are already okay. And no matter what you're going through, no matter what's happening around you, you're okay. And so I think if I could instill that in myself at an earlier age, um, I would have just bypassed so much of, of what I experienced. I
Wouldn't
know
we
we all
all? Yeah.
experience all the things that we're meant to experience and all those things, but sometimes, and I think that the things that we do too, is because it took such a long time for me to find that space and to be okay in that space, I do want to give shortcuts to other people. I want them to already be okay and be aware of that and know that you're not too broken to heal.
Never.
And you do not have to live with what you are living with if it is difficult and uncomfortable for you. You don't have to. And I think so many people are told, well, it's something you have to learn to live with. And it's like, you probably don't have to learn to live with that. And also they're, meant to feel like, oh, that's you're so far gone, you're just going to have to figure it out, on your own or something, and you don't. And it doesn't have to take forever to heal. It doesn't take years and years and years, which some of us have had to deal with and experience. It might not be tomorrow, but it can be a lot less than what I experienced. So you are already okay. Oh my goodness, I'm a bookaholic. So
That's why I give three options, because I think when people say, what book? And I'm like, oh, Lord. Yeah.
but I will say one book that I often recommend to people because we didn't talk about some of the other stuff that I do, but I'm also an intuitive, and we all are. We all are intuitive. We all have intuition. It's not a gift. It's not anything like that. And it's honestly, people will say, oh, it's a sixth. Do you have that sixth sense? No, it's my first sense. Intuition is my first sense. Everything else is kind of comes from that. Uh, I always believe that the universe is there. Our subconscious is the gateway to that information, and then it comes through our intuition that it actually comes to be provided to us. And there's a great book by Laura Day called Practical Intuition. And so I often recommend someone who wants to kind of further their intuition and it's got some great exercises in it. It explains it in a really kind of helpful, easy way. And it's fun. So that's the book I would recommend. It does nothing to do with like some of the other stuff we talked about, but it's a book I recommend a lot.
I actually think it does, because I think, certainly for me, if I'd have listened to my intuition sooner, in a lot of cases, in a lot of instances, the angels wouldn't have had to make the road so difficult.
Yeah. I know we're given,
So
I mean, how many times do you walk past a glass sitting on a counter and you think, oh, I should move that glass back or something like that. And then you just go, and you keep going. That's intuition, because then, oh my goodness, you turn around and you whack that glass off. And it's like, oh,
absolutely.
I knew I should have moved that.
Yeah. And that's exactly. So I don't think those two things are, I think they're absolutely um
Yeah.
compatible and together and important, because life for me wouldn't have got quite so difficult if I'd listened
Yeah.
to my intuition. But my ego
Yeah.
was telling me, you're in a good career, all that stuff that you were saying, I'd sickness benefit, I would have a pension, I would have, all that kind of.
Yeah.
And in the end of the day, none of that was really that important. No, not really.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. You'll send me, and we'll put in the things below, your link to your podcast,
Sure.
the Change Gang. You also do a lovely wee live on a Wednesday, is it, on Facebook?
Oh, it's changed
Right.
right now because
Oh,
my schedule with my grand changed. So it's been on Fridays, and then I totally had family here this last week. I usually do it on Fridays now in the group, but it's the Change Gang group on Facebook. Yeah, I'm there.
so we'll put all the links to all of that for if people want to find more about yourself and about your hypnotherapy and your woo, your practicalities and your woo, putting the two
Yeah.
together. Thank you very much for your
Wonderful.
time, Laura. I really, really appreciate that, and wish you all the very best for the future.
Well, thank you for letting me share. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.